Hi, everyone. Welcome to Winging It, a show by Oddbird about web design, development, and our approach to solving problems. On today's show, we're going to be talking about scope and mixins and where we are with those and how to use those and what we can and can't do with those. And we'll talk about some of our opinions about these amazing tools that CSS just continues to include. With me today, as usual, I have co-host Miriam Suzanne. Thanks for joining us.
Hey.
I think we need like a little audience clapping track every time I introduce someone. And there we go. And Chris Coyier. I didn't get a bio from you, but I can probably recite it from heart. Chris Coyier is one of the co-founders. I don't know what your title is at CodePen, but probably everyone knows who Chris Coyier is, probably responsible for a lot of our professional career influences. So he joins us today. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yay.
Yeah, should also plug awesome, Shop Talk Show.
Yeah, well, I also have a podcast, shoptalkshow.com. Yeah, cool.
Long time.
That's
listening.
About it. Yeah. CodePen's so small, it doesn't matter what our titles are really, Maybe it will.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
Yeah, like whatever. It matters when you have to fill out official paperwork sometimes, though. And you're like, "Who's the CEO?" You're like, I don't know, but I don't want to get it wrong either, because it feels like, what if there's another piece of paper that says somebody else's? They'll be like, "What's going on over there?"
Yeah.
Anyway.
We make up our own titles too at Oddbird, and they sometimes change depending on who you're talking to or what you're doing. So
yeah,
totally relate to that.
When I was really young, I was like, I'm gonna only make them up, and then but there's like pushback as you get older. Like if you do need to change jobs at some point, it does kind of matter a little bit. So you might, you can't.
Yeah, we often when somebody leaves, we're like, tell us what job title you had, and we'll back you up.
There you go. That's the right way to do it. All right, so what are we going to talk about? Scope. You're all
at Scope.
Yeah.
Miriam, what is Scope at Scope?
Oh, last I heard, nobody knows. Scope. There's a new at Scope rule. So we've had the scope selector :scope for a long time, and it's mostly just been useful in JavaScript. You can use it in query selector all, to say only search within a thing.
Oh, really? It's old. So
yeah.
:scope is older because it was in JavaScript already. And I always know you can do document.querySelectorAll, or query selector all. It's got all these little buddies, right? But you can also call that on an element that isn't the document.
Right. And then if you call that on an element that's not the document and you use the :scope, it refers to that element.
But like why? Because you already, I don't know.
I don't think it. I think by default it still searches globally, which feels weird. Like you call it on an element and it still does a global thing, and scope can narrow it down. Yeah.
All right. So that existed in there, and did it work? Did it work in CSS too?
Even though I think it worked, but it didn't. It was just always the root. The scope was just the root.
Always
There's
the
nothing.
Root.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, but that doesn't matter because it's all changed now.
Yeah, well, and in 2013 or 2014, there was a scope proposal that was going to do a bunch of stuff, but it was real strict, and people kind of didn't like it. And then the browsers that implemented it rolled it back. It was one of those they were like, "Oh, this didn't work," and so actually working on it again, there was a lot of fear about trying to ship scope again,
right?
Because it failed last time.
I like that culturally the web is scared of stuff like that. That's like kind of good, maybe. That we're
probably.
We don't like to break stuff, and that's a breaker. When you have to pull something back on the web, we almost never do that.
Anyway. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think it happened really quickly, so like it wasn't like baseline everywhere and then pulled back. It was like a few people tried it, authors didn't like it, nobody else shipped, And
so not to confuse people, but just for clarity, almost for myself, this is the one that where scope was like a keyword on the angle bracket style tag. Is that the one?
Oh, you could. That was one of the things in it. I think it also had an @scope rule, but you could do the scoped attribute on the style tag. Was one of the options in it.
I remember liking that one, just, not that I remember the whole reason why it was pulled or anything, but it was kind of like, let's say you got a WordPress blog and you're like bloggy blog, and you want to like insert some styles in it, but you don't want to like necessarily be responsible for like naming a class that you're going to need to know about and think about for the rest of your life. You're like, I wish I could write some CSS that is scoped to like just this blog post or even just this little div in the blog post, but I don't want to write inline styles because they're too limiting, yada, yada. So what you could do is put a style tag in there with a scoped attribute and be like, oh, okay, well, I've now protected myself from this lifelong problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great thing to be able to do. The problem with the attribute approach is that browsers that don't understand the attribute just ignore it, and now your styles aren't scoped.
Kind of a problem.
And that's a pretty bad fallback.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So that was why the attribute didn't work, but the concept is good, and so it's part of this one. I guess it's the part that you've been calling DOM blasters, which I don't. Where did that term come from?
Oh my God. I don't know. Although I did have a friend who would call, just that I think of with endearment, who called everything a blaster, like from a shot at the bar, like, let's do some blasters, which turned into just anything, like if it was like little flavored broccoli bites, they were definitely broccoli blasters, it just became a term like that. And now I use blasters a little too much. And so, yeah, I call it a little DOM blaster, although that was very tongue in cheek. And I don't think it's anybody thinks of it in that way, but that's just what I described with the WordPress blog, like a little piece of CSS that I want to write and inject somewhere. And like, frankly, maybe don't care that much about performance, even though I don't really know if it's good or bad per performance, but like, I don't know. I don't really care, really. I just need to put a little piece of CSS somewhere, and putting it directly into the DOM is kind of neat because, not to jump ahead, but it has this characteristic where then if you use that @scope keyword, the scope is the parent element of that style tag. That's just neat. It almost just feels like a one-liner in the spec somewhere that's like, oh, why don't you just make that the scope? And then boom, it unlocked this whole useful thing. But I don't have a good sense of like, it feels almost like a little bonus extra thing or something, not like the main point of this API. It almost feels like a sideshow or anyway.
Yeah, I mean, in that, like, the way that we got there this time around was by providing the @rule, and @rules that a browser doesn't understand work the opposite way. Like if a browser hits an @rule and doesn't know what it is, it just ignores everything inside of it. And so we get that kind of fallback, which is what we want. And so
that's funny. Could you use it as like a weird way to do like block comments?
Like, you totally could. You could just do @comment, and the browser's gonna ignore everything in there.
Chunk. Well, that's weird.
There you go.
There you go.
Until CSS adds @comment in 2035, and
yeah, don't call it @comment. You gotta namespace it or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you have @scope, and it works the opposite way. But you don't just say @scope curly bracket, although you can. It's just meaningless outside of like a CSS that's in a style tag in the DOM. Normally, you have to provide parentheses to it, which we're already used to because that's how you write media queries and style queries and every other kind of query. But what you put in the parentheses is like a selector.
Yeah. Right. Well, so we've got the, like, you can use it just @scope. I could actually pull up a demo here.
That would be great.
If that's useful.
Oh, fun. We can.
Very useful.
Share screen.
I don't know if we've even answered the first question yet.
What is scope?
What is scope? Let's like walk through it now.
Well, it's sort of a big question because, like, to some extent, and I think you talked about this in your talk on scope, Chris, to some extent, everything, like a selector is scope. CSS is just all scopes all the way down. You select something and then you're only styling those things. You're sort of scoping your styles to a specific element.
That's the part that's still like rubs me a little weird. So not to go too far away from what is scope, but you're trying to apply styles just to only certain things on the page. You're trying to be very like specific, or I'm avoiding using the word scope in the definition of what scope is, but trying to like only touch these things, not these things over there.
Yeah.
And what happens with that is that I don't know, you can accidentally touch more than you want to, and that's kind of a bummer, or things like that. And this part that I'm like, it feels weird, is if you write at scope and then in parentheses you write a class and then you start writing stuff, you're like, you didn't do anything. Just that class without scoping it is literally the same thing. So just writing a selector, it is scope.
Kinda. You're kinda right. Okay,
we're going to need a few command pluses here.
Okay, let's do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, here we go.
Something like that.
Yes.
So here it is, just used in a style tag in the HTML. And I don't remember what I put in here. This is an old demo I just pulled up. So I've got the @scope rule, and then because I haven't put anything here in the what we call the prelude in spec language,
prelude, that's
the curly
that's
brackets.
Called?
That's what that's called.
Something.
Yeah, that's going on the CSS's awesome game show next year.
Great.
So what is line 4 then at scope? I know the answer, but as far as trivia is concerned,
colon scope targets. So at scope without a prelude inside of a style tag selects the parent of the style tag. So now that section is our scope, and the colon scope selects that. So it would be the same as if we did. Well, it's not exactly the same as selecting section, but it's only that section. It wouldn't include
right now that you've written that, people are noticing
that
it doesn't work. Yeah, that would be section that you've just written, kind of.
Yeah, so we actually want because it assumes colon scope before if we don't say it explicitly.
Right.
I think technically and scope should do the same thing here.
It does. That's a nice little trick. And doing nothing also works. If you remove 4 and 7.
Right. If we just remove those lines, that should also style it.
I think that's one
and
of
I
those
think we made sure that those.
Bit new.
Yeah. And I think we made sure that all of those have the same specificity too, which is a specificity of 0. So
interesting. Even though it looks like a pseudo class selector, it does not have specificity.
Right. Or, yeah, well, I'd have to look back at that.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, I think it was that and or empty actually end up doing, the default is where scope, which gives it that 0 specificity.
Fun. Okay.
So if you said scope, then you're actually getting the pseudo class specificity. But where scope or and will give you 0, or not having anything there will also give you 0.
I like the nothing just because it just looks clean to
me.
Because it feels like, I don't know, like the colon scope it's like nice to have, but if you don't need it,
if you don't need it,
feels like
totally. So then one of the first things that you can do with scope that you can't do with other selectors is that you could put a lower boundary on it. So you could say scope to article.
Right. This is where you're shooting me down and saying that just scope with the selector in it is useless or not the same, or it's the same as just doing a class. Well, it's not, because you can't use this to keyword.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you acknowledged that in your talk, so I don't think I'm disagreeing with you here. It's the part that feels less useful is when you're just scoping directly and you're doing it from a selector, but we can get to that. But yeah, scoping to article, now we're saying we're only scoping things that are in the section, but not also in an article inside of the section.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing. It's one of those things that shipped in CSS that's like, there was absolutely no way to do this before.
Right.
Like, this is brand new ability to CSS and is kind of neat to they call it donut, right? High five, Nicole Sullivan and all that. But to just be like, oh, I'm gonna have the CSS that just stops dead in its tracks and just stops selecting inside is just cool.
And I think that's the primary feature of scope right there. That's like the thing that we really just couldn't do in any possible way. And there was we tried to sort of make it a selector instead of an at rule, like some sort of selector that gives you a lower boundary, but it's just complicated. The concept of like, we need to know from where to where, and then a separate selector inside of that, the at rule seemed to make sense. But that's the real powerful part.
That seems correct to me. And it also seems like the part that probably, I don't know, your average CSSer out there, it doesn't like, you're not like, oh my God, thank God, it's going to change everything. It's more like when you need it, you're going to say thank God, right? Or whatever.
Right. And this is the thing that a lot of tools do something like this, but in order to do it, I mean, like CSS modules, I think is one, or then Vue and Svelte and all of those third-party tools sort of end up with this way of taking your code that is scoped to a component in a single file component somewhere, and then they JavaScript it a bunch, and they add attributes or classes to your HTML, and then they sort of create selectors that only target those specific attributes and classes.
I think you bring up a good point there, is that you had to involve the HTML,
right?
Which is kind of like, I don't want to.
So that's the part where if we pull this out into our CSS and we said at scope, well, I guess I have it. Now that we don't have that parent style tag, we need to say what we are scoping.
Just section, right?
Section to article. And there we can do the same thing from the outside. And in some ways, this is like doing a nested selector, except that we get this lower boundary. So we can style paragraphs, and it's only styling the paragraph outside the article, not the one inside the article.
Yes. I can't imagine a situation where you have this like parent component, or this component that has plenty of jobs in this world. Maybe it's even a layout component or a card component, which is famously just a little website, because absolutely anything can go into a card, where it has certain jobs. You're like, I want to style things within this card or layout or something, but not everything. Like, not every single nested component all the way down forever.
Exactly.
So
it's components that have that donut hole in them, where or tabs are another example of that, where you want to style the tab component, but not whatever you put inside of it. That's a separate thing.
Absolutely, because the tabs themselves might be a UL, for example, and you need to really specially style that UL to look like tabs. You don't want every UL in history underneath it to also look like tabs. That's just weird.
One of the things that I like about this too is it means that we can think about things. We don't need to put like real specific classes on everything. We don't need to say like, this is a section title and this is a article. I'm probably not doing BEM right. I don't know BEM. We don't need to be so detailed about it. We can just say like, look, I'm looking at the section. I'm not looking inside the article, so I don't care. Let's just use the class of title. Let's even say, let's just go with H2s. Let's style paragraph. Like, we can go back to styling real basic concepts without being so specific in all of our classes.
Right. Being more chill about what you name. And that's why I liked the DOM Blaster approach too, is that you kind of don't have to name anything. You might not even need you might not need no selectors at all if all you're trying to style is that parent. And then you can nest within it. So this is also like high five nesting. This would be like way less useful if we didn't already have nesting, but thankfully we do.
Right. You could also think of it like if you start to use custom elements, then you've already given those a name. So now you can just select those. You're not adding special naming.
Display
it's got to be, yeah. So like sometimes if we're doing that sort of thing, we're maybe getting the name for free and selecting it, not a big deal.
I like that. Because I do, you know, this is where this is confusing to combine it with CSS modules. And in this case, I'm talking about the one that does the obfuscation of the class names, which I admit that I like and use because it has the same type of property, which is I don't want to worry so much that the name that I'm using is in the global scope and there's some danger that somebody else in my company, on this project, even third-party code, uses that same name and they overlap each other in this way that's like, oh, damn it. What a dumb little problem, you know?
Right.
So when I write .card, it doesn't matter if 10 other people have typed .card. It gets obfuscated into this isolated world that I want to use it in, and that's nice. And this doesn't unlock that exactly, but it's in the same spiritual corridor as that.
Right. Well, I mean, it's like you only have to worry about these names conflicting now. The names of the scopes, nothing inside of it.
Unless there's specificity, right? That beats proximity.
Right. But if you're using these sort of lower boundaries to scope that you're only selecting things inside of your component, you're not going to have the conflicts in the first place where specificity matters, right? Specificity is only going to matter if you have overlapping scopes, which
things might
allowed.
leak in, but nothing's going to leak out. Like your .title fantasy there is not going to make anything else fantasy, but a .title on the outside can come in, which is not the case with CSS modules.
So you're protecting your own things, but other people might come invade your little scope.
Right. Totally. Yeah. So right now, the scoped title is winning because they have the same specificity and the scoped one is scoped, which wins by a little bit. But if we bumped up the specificity here, now it's applying, now it's overriding the scope.
Right. So it's not total protection, but it wasn't really aiming for that. You know, there's other things for total protection if that's what you're into, Shadow DOM and whatnot.
Yeah.
Pretty
and
cool.
This isn't just based on the order of things because the scoping does matter some. So, but it matters less than specificity. So when the specificity is the same, we're not looking at the source order. That could be either way. And the scope still wins because of proximity.
Okay, you should get into that though, because that's the secondary coolest thing that this can do. That is truly mind-bending. So I'm just going to shut up and soak in your explanation of proximity because it's so strange.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, and we wanted it to. Well, I mean, there's a disagreement in the group of how strong proximity should be. Proximity is the idea that like. How many steps is it from, so if we said, so scope here is just referring to the root, and we're also getting scope applied before this. So how many steps are there in the HTML between a scope and a title, or this scope and title? And so we can count. We can say, well, if the scope is my section and the title is right inside of it, that's one step. But if the scope is the root, then we have to go, well, it's like 3 steps because we're going HTML body, my section, title. So HTML to body to my section to title, 3 steps. And so the one that's only 2 or only 1 step is gonna beat the one that takes 3 steps to get there. And that's the scope proximity heuristic. I think it's nice, but I would think of it as like specificity was never supposed to be the main thing we were doing. It was always supposed to be like a fallback. Like when CSS was invented, all the style sheets were so simple that you didn't have lots of conflicts. And so specificity just sort of helps, like, yeah, you styled H1s generally, and then you styled the specific one. The specific one should win probably, right? That makes sense. And this is the same sort of idea. Like, it's not always going to be right, but it kind of makes sense as what you probably wanted.
So what you're saying is like it's like a little tiny bit more powerful than source order, but not as powerful as specificity.
Exactly. And there's disagreement on whether that was the right way to go. There's some people who want what we call the strong proximity, which is that proximity beats specificity, that it's more important than specificity. That seemed too dangerous to me. But
like if you
I could be
bumped up
wrong.
the strength of proximity, that's what they wanted, to be even more strong.
So that scopes would override specificity.
That seems, I don't, it's hard to understand the full implications of it, but it does seem like, ooh, really? More powerful?
Yeah.
I don't know.
We still have
we already got layers that are freaking us out.
Yeah.
We're still like trying to settle ourselves down from that.
Well, in either case, layers are sort of the solution. Like if this heuristic guess that proximity should win, if that guess is wrong, layers are your solution to clarify. Like,
okay. So that's related.
I'll just tell you which one should be a winner. I'll layer it.
Yeah. I do feel like it's pretty rare for someone to be like, I was counting on that source order to be right. Nobody wants that. That's awful.
Yeah, so that's why proximity felt proximity felt more useful to me than source order, but not magical and always correct. Just better than source order.
Yeah, just like a little bit, It does seem
we still have the opening to be
magically make some intuitive sense. Be like, oh, look but that class is just like closer.
Right. We have some ability to, like, if we wanted to add a keyword here that's like strong or seriously or whatever, like we could add something there to trigger. I mean, it's not the feature right now, but it's like if people really want strong scoping, strong proximity, we could add something.
Is it an extra keyword to the preamble? Did I get it right?
I mean, that's probably the way we would do it. But the prelude. I don't think we need it.
Yeah, we already have like a little too much at the moment for everybody to digest in strength. We're like trying to understand these. The classic diagram has how strong everything is. And then there's already oh, but you got to remember important rules are reversed in layers and stuff. You're like, too much.
Right.
Okay, but it is pretty cool. And it is what my favorite thing is when there's like new features to the web platform and CSS like this that are absolutely undoable in any other way. You couldn't, this isn't even polyfillable really, right? It would be, or I guess it is, but it would be a mess. It'd be JavaScript
the polyfill requires
the whole DOM.
Yeah, you have to understand the whole DOM to polyfill it, which is how like Vue or Svelte or whatever does it, or CSS modules, I guess, as well. And one of the things that we checked is we talked to the developers of those tools and said, could you switch to this? So again, they could make it so that instead of adding a bunch of new attributes to your HTML and then adding an attribute to every selector, they could instead just do it on the scopes and then use this. So down the road, it could be that you're still writing your scoped view styles the same way you were writing them before, and under the hood, Vue just uses this instead of doing their sort of more heavy-handed approach.
I have a few questions here, but they may be completely out of order. Here's a question I run into when I talk to people. How does scope differ from other programming language, how other programming languages think of scope?
Does somebody here know other programming languages?
It is interesting in that, like, I think of scope as like, oh, that's where my variables are contained. I've written a function in JavaScript, if as long as I use a keyword in there properly, the variable is scoped to it. That's kind of also true of CSS here, but that you don't need to use that scope for that. Like, it is true that just writing a class in CSS is still kind of not to be so confusing, but it is kind of a scoping already. And like, what happens when you declare -- Miriam on like after line 7? Like, where does that?
Right. Well, so like other properties, and this is, I think, actually what Stephanie Eccles was mentioning. Let's do it with something that we can see. Yeah, well, let's say Miriam deep pink. And now we can say we can use that here.
That's going to be scoped properly. And if you tried to access Miriam on the body, it wouldn't know. So that's similar to...
Well, but that's just the same as if you did it in a normal selector, right?
It is, but still, scoping is happening.
But it's scoped to the DOM trees instead of scoped to, like...
Oh,
it's scoped. You got to use it's Miriam. Scoped to my section. Oh, whoops! Right. It's scoped to my section and everything inside of it. But things that inherit, we could now see article. Even though article is out of scope, it does have access to that variable.
Oh no! I was hoping that it wouldn't.
They do pass through. Inherited properties do pass through still, because there's not really a way to.
It broke the donut. It's ruining my mental. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is a thing that people also get surprised with Shadow DOM, right? The same thing happens with Shadow DOM.
Right, like your font family, it's coming in. It's coming in hot because it's inherited, and that's just how they work, right? I guess you could tell it to not inherit, though. Ooh, you should try that. Make an app property for Miriam and tell it to not inherit.
Oh, you could. Yeah, you could do that, but then you wouldn't have access to it in title either.
Okay. That's too bad.
I mean, really what you can do is you could say, you could come up with a convention, something like this, and then we say, we're just going to go to end scope always.
Oh, cool. That's a cool idea.
We're also going to say that end scope resets Miriam or something. Miriam initial. So always when you get to the end of the scope, and now if we say paragraphs color,
it's gonna not work.
It's gonna only work inside of the scope because once we get to the end of the scope, we've reset it. So there's ways you can use this to reset, but it's really hard to turn off inheritance, and I think people would be surprised if you did. Like, it is surprising to think that things can pass through this boundary that we've created, but also if you didn't let things pass through, it gets really surprising when everything resets to its initial value.
Right. It's not
because really you don't want to reset to an initial value. You want to reset to like what
revert
was
layer
it
or whatever.
above the and it's like revert to where, to what exactly. There's not sort of an obvious way to automate that.
All right. So answer to the question is like, I don't know, it's similar, but because it's CSS is such a unique domain specific language, I don't know.
Right.
Pretty different, I guess. What's the next question? Is this what do you want to do?
I think we sort of answered this in that last demo. Would you say that's fair? Can this be used to prevent one rule from stepping on another? I think that's kind of why one would use it, right?
As long as, so you're making it so that only these rules have to be unique, and the stuff inside doesn't have to worry about being unique as much to avoid stepping on each other.
That's this, like, I don't have any solution or blame or anything, but it is the part that, like, you still do need to worry about conflicts of that initial name.
Mm-hmm.
And CSS just can't fix that. So that's the deal. Like, it's not the same as CSS modules. It doesn't abstract at that same level. That's okay.
Right.
In a way, it's more powerful, but it cannot prevent that first layer conflict.
Right.
Okay.
And then can you achieve a similar functionality with namespaces?
Not with lower scoping.
I've never played with CSS namespaces. I don't really understand how they work, but are there even author controlled namespaces in CSS, or is it just like
it just means like name your classes, like BEMI, right? Is that what that's saying?
Well, there is a like namespace syntax for, you can style like just in the SVG namespace something.
What?
But I don't even know how it works. I've never done it.
With a pipe?
I know nobody uses it. I think it's a pipe. I don't remember.
Wow,
I mean, SAS imports or SAS modules have namespaces. Is that?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Sort of what they're.
I'm not sure if that's what they're referring to.
As keyword. I don't know. Pass.
All right.
We don't know.
That was ask us later. Let's move on to Mixins. We don't have that much time left, but we did have a conversation about Mixins like 4 months ago, I think. But why don't we?
Are they working in here? Are they shipped in? Are you in like Canary or something?
Oh, I'm in. Here we can see it not working. Oh no, I was sharing the.
Hold on, kids. You want to see it not work? All right, but a Mixin is fun. This is a totally different concept, right? We are like switching gears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's another new CSS thing. So.
And they were both things you had written or spoken about recently, so they're tied together in some way.
I think they're cool. I think Mixins are very cool. Maybe. Like, if I had to pick, they're pretty high on the list of coolness. I always thought that it would be, because for the the hardcores joining us, they seem very much more connected to the concept of a function, to the point where they're like spec together, aren't they? And they, for whatever reason, functions shipped first, which I think are Chrome only. But functions are neat in that but they have this like limitation that a function, and this is true of all functions ever in CSS. Think of like, I don't know, the URL function or something, like things that have been in CSS forever. They always invariably return one value only. So you can write this function, and whatever, even if you write a custom one and it like quote unquote returns something, although it uses a different keyword or something, doesn't it? It's not return, it's something else. It returns one value, result. Yeah. Really neat. But it's like, that's limiting. And I always thought, oh, like, can't you write a function that just outputs like a whole bunch of CSS? No, you can't. You know what you need for that? A mixin.
A mixin.
So that's what's like more exciting to me, is that a mixin is like more broad. You can return this like whole chunk of CSS with a mixin. And that to me is like super cool.
Stacy, do you want to put my screen on stage again?
Oh yeah, I do.
Wait. Am I
That's
not?
it? I'm looking at a Mixin.
You're looking at a Mixin?
Yeah, but it's not displaying
the
output.
Yeah, but it's not displaying
My
right.
browser is. Actually, I'm
Hold
gonna
on, hold
post it.
on.
You need,
Yeah.
what do you need to see Mixins? You need Chrome Canary.
I didn't know anybody had
Chromium
shipped
with a
it.
flag.
Yeah.
Experimental web platform
Screen.
features turned on.
Oh my god, this is so complicated because sometimes it's just a flag you can turn on, and sometimes you have to like launch
Here we
Chrome
go.
from the command line. With
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem to be working in Vivaldi, so maybe it's a newer version of Chrome supports it.
there you go.
So the same thing in Vivaldi here, not working, but in Chrome it is.
Okay, so Mixins is shipped. That's bigger. I didn't even know that. That's cool.
It's at least, it might be still behind the experimental web platform features flag. I just have that turned on. If you don't, you can
It's in
go
Canary.
to
I don't know about
Chrome
regular
flags,
Chrome,
and
but I
you
had
can
to
turn
turn
on
it on.
experimental web platform features.
Got it. All right, so we can see it, and this comes from, like, I feel like if anybody already feels like they understand what a mixin is, it's because you use Sass, and Sass had mixins. People use the crap out of mixins and Sass.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of, I think there's been a lot for the browsers to solve to get mixins working. I think functions have been easier for the browsers, which is why it shipped first in
that's
Chrome.
funny. It just was like, yeah, this is easier. We're going to do this first.
Yeah. They're still struggling with like how to make sure that like a mixin works within like you can define a mixin inside of a layer or outside of a layer, and you can use layers in mixins, and there's a lot of complexity to all that that's still getting discussed. But the basics look a lot like they did in Sass. I think this is one of the handy use cases, is just like I've got this whole chunk of @supports stuff that I got to do to make sure that there's a good fallback for this feature. So we can test what the fallback looks like. I'm passing in a background and a fallback. So my background is the linear gradient, and my fallback is just green.
That's nice. You invented your own little CSS API for how you want that to work for you.
Yeah, and I could do something more like color 1 and color 2, and it's always a gradient. This just makes it so I could also, I don't know, I could grab some asset of
you could
Bob
take it,
Fosse,
make it so
I
it
guess.
makes, yeah, there you go. Oh, and then that's
that background image bit, right?
It's going to be back there instead.
Yeah, that's not going to be great.
But you can kind of see it working.
But the idea,
yeah, that's nice. So it's not make background gradient. It's background clip whatever in your case, because you invented the API and you can do whatever you want with it. It could take one color, assume a gradient, and darken the color or whatever. But it's up to you. That's so cool.
I could also be like, okay, we've got the general one. Now let's call it background. I can't type while talking. Background gradient, and it's just color 1, color 2, and it calls the other
each
one.
Other? That's so cool. Yeah.
So then in this one, we put all the gradient logic.
Right.
But with color 1 and color 2.
Right. This is like actual programming. This is how, a JavaScript developer would think of a certain ilk.
Right. And then we're just keeping it a little simpler there. Did I get something wrong in it? I must have. Background gradient.
Gradient to right from color 1 to color 2. It looks right, but
text.
maybe
I need to provide a fallback.
Yeah, no fallback. Killed it.
Well,
that was our theory, at least.
So maybe they can't
or the value there. Do you need to tell it what property to use that on, or is that declared earlier?
No, because it's a mixin. it's at the declaration level, so it's outside of
just dumps all its guts out.
It just exactly. Yeah, so I'm not sure what sort of
someone in the chat will tell us.
No, it looks like you did it right. So it may be that they just didn't implement Mixins calling other Mixins yet. I mean, that's possible.
Yeah, that is possible. That's just not implemented yet. That should work. Something like that should work. If I don't have a typo somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, typo is possible too.
Yeah,
but...
it's under development, so likely to be
it's cool. It's very
issues.
Similar to SAS. Did SAS get a free pass that you can use the same keyword because of the custom ident thing? Because you worry
exactly.
You worry that code like this, people, when you invent new CSS, that CSS will go through the SAS processor at some point. Somebody is going to be like, oh, cool, a new CSS feature. I'm going to try it. It runs through the SAS processor, and SAS is like, we support Mixins, and it chews this thing up. But the dash there SAS must be smart enough to be like, oh, I'm going to leave that alone.
Well, I think SAS sort of deprecated having the double dash at the start of mixins and functions when we started to roll this out in CSS. SAS was just like, okay, that's easy enough to just tell people not to do it in SAS anymore. And then we know the difference.
Which is great. But I bet if you used like a SAS from 2 years ago, it might choke on it or something. Right. Or it might just work because no, it actually will not work because the apply keyword is wrong.
Right, the apply keyword is wrong, and you're defining your arguments a little bit differently.
Can you use @content for CSS Mixins like you could SAS? All I want is to make a breakpoint mixin so I don't have to redefine the values over and over since it doesn't use CSS custom properties in media queries. What can I do to avoid that?
Can you? Does this skirt that issue? No. That would be
I'm not thinking you could define the properties elsewhere. I'm just saying let's just make a mixin to say if width is greater than 12 rems, do this. So it's always 12 rems, and you can apply the mixin.
Oh, I see. Then yes,
and then
you can
put the content in the mixin where that content would go for SAS.
Right. You would want @content here, and then we would say like body.
And then you call the mixin, apply mid-screen.
Apply mid-screen.
Does this work?
And then you don't pass it anything.
Background. You pass it as contents instead of passing it as arguments.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And
that's pretty cool.
Yes, that is supposed to work.
But it's not working.
Clearly. Well, so like this is a partial implementation behind a flag but that should work.
Yay. I will be excited.
All right, so you get like one slot or whatever, which is cool.
Right.
That's mostly what people
I think
want.
there is some way because we do have a possibility for if statements and stuff. Well, if are inline, but we would have like @supports something. There's various conditions you could have like media. So you could say you could have your content be somewhere else. So if width is greater than 50, then use this one.
How does that work?
But the mid-screen would be...
Oh, you're just barfing out the contents twice, which is a little weird, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's not really what you're going to want, is it? But yeah, you can barf out the contents in two different conditions. There are places that would make more sense than a media query.
Okay, that's cool. So, but what's one like conceptual way to think about this is like from the opening mixin curly brace to the closing mixin curly brace, you're getting all of it. All of that stuff is coming along for the ride when you call apply. So that's just interesting.
Yeah, that's an open question because right now that's true, right? Everything we put inside of let's go back to having this. Was that the version that worked? Oh, right. We need these to be back to whatever our colors are.
That should work.
Right. So all of this is getting output right now, just as a whole chunk, or at least as long as we've got support, it's outputting all of this. So there's a question of, should we have the ability to say, like, at private something, define a variable? Because right now, if we defined Miriam here,
yeah, because it's there, it's getting like reapplied on that H1.
We have access to it out here now because everything in there is public.
Yeah. Which is
so
kind of cool because you
question
could
of,
use
like,
it as like a variable buffer. Be like, I need all these
Yeah.
variables on this. Yeah.
You could have a dark mode mix-in that defines all your dark mode variables and a light mode mix or whatever. You could dump out a bunch of variables.
But you that may be a side effect that you're not intending. I can totally see it the other way.
Right.
Being
So
like,
do we
oh,
need some
dude, I
sort
don't
of
need to barf out those variables. I was just using those internally, please. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
So do we need something like that? Or the alternative that's being discussed right now is that we bring back result and we say only
Right.
the stuff inside of at result gets pushed out and everything else is private.
Yes, I like it for whatever reason. There's just something very explicit about it. I don't know. It's everything else is so explicit in CSS that you're like,
Yeah.
That's why I said conceptually, it's like everything in those curly braces. It's like it's coming. You get it all.
Okay, but here's the next question then. You provide two results. Do they add together, or does one override the other?
It's proximity. You got it.
I was going to say order of appearance. Yeah.
This is an active debate that, like, people are commenting on this issue in the last couple days of what should this do.
It definitely attracts a certain kind of person because some people would be like, I don't know, I can just imagine different types of archetypes of humans discussing this and be like, then just don't do that, you idiot, But people in web standards, you have to care.
Yeah,
this needs to be a spec thing. But what does happen?
Yeah, what happens? So,
real quick.
And can you if it? Maybe.
Yeah, we can also use functions.
Now that at result is like quote unquote one thing, an if function feels like it could potentially be used there.
Maybe I'll just go to like I can find a function example that I already have instead of writing it from scratch. What's going to be a good?
Chris, do you have like
a negative,
a verb or a name for all the people who use CodePen? Or do you call them like CodePennies or CodePenners or just authors or
penners?
Penners. Yeah, I feel like you need like something specific. Because Miriam, you have a lot of pens.
That's a good question. I think after 15 years, something would have come up. But we even tried to get pen to stick on. Like a pen is one of these. This is a pen. And I feel like a very vanishingly few people have internalized that, even though I've been really consistent about it for all those 15 years. It just didn't work. Like a JS Fiddle had a fiddle and that stuck. That was fine. People got it. And a pen on CodePen, people don't get it. They just say a CodePen, which is fine, but it's like calling an article on a blog post a blog. Like, go to this blog, and you're like, they're trying to say an article on the blog,
Sure.
We have that same problem, People.
But I do have other pens, so it's sometimes useful to be like, well, it's a code pen.
Yeah, well, we failed is the point. I'm not trying to defend it. Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, I have I got a new batch of these bad boys, the literal pen, where oh come on, it's going to want to focus on my phone.
That's why you do the hand thing,
Oh yeah, where I block out my own face.
Yeah,
is that what streamers do?
That's what streamers
Yeah, it
do.
works.
Oh, I have to do
Nice.
it.
I have a super old code pen from
Well,
like
you see, it's our logo, but a pen
Oh,
is
2013.
nice.
implied.
Code.
It doesn't.
Oh, it's
It
just
doesn't have to
code.
say pen because it is a pen. Get it?
Oh, that's
Lovely.
excellent. I want one.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Can do. All right. So what are we? We're doing a function here. You already have some
Oh,
code
yeah.
written.
I mean, somebody was asking about functions, and yeah, the answer is we can do functions. So this one just takes some argument and makes it negative by doing a calc on it.
One of my favorite. It's so simple.
But like Chris was saying earlier, you get a single result that's a single value instead of getting a whole chunk of code.
Oh, and this is an
so they're
already
useful for
answered
different
problem
things.
because if you put a second result, that second one doesn't win.
The
Right?
second one does
I think
because it works just like
I
order
thought it was
of
the
appearance.
first one it hits. The first one that's
No,
valid
it's
wins.
no. That's why we didn't call it return because that's how return works in other languages.
Okay.
But in CSS, we're doing the CSS thing where the last one wins. Because that's how
that makes
CSS
sense.
works.
So that's how the return should work. Why should there be any argument at all about it then?
Great, you just solved it.
Okay,
no, that
good.
is one of the other argument is that if you think of it more like at public or something, then you could just have a bunch of them and they add together, and that could also be a useful thing. But if we're calling it result, you're probably right. It should work the same.
Yeah. Oh, result. Yeah. So this is fun. It looks so small, but then if you were going to like really robust this sucker out, like you're going to make an NPM package of all your cool functions that do math stuff, that n value you'd probably type, right? Because it's you're
So we
multiplying
could say
it by an integer, so you'd want to do that.
Has to be a number.
Right. And then it'd probably have a default value so that it doesn't bomb out like
Well,
1 or
what's the reasonable default here? For I just want a negative. I don't know.
Actually, you probably wouldn't because that is
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. So I might
still,
stop
you could.
with that.
But you could. So just :1, that's it? That's how chill typing and default values are?
Wait. So I don't know here. This doesn't seem to be right. Do I need to say type?
Oh, I bet you do, yeah. I remember it being like slightly more verbose than I wanted it to be. But,
well, there's supposed to be a shorthand for simple things and then a longhand for, like you're supposed to only have to use the type brackets if you're doing something complex like number or
yeah.
Yeah. But if you're not doing that, it should just work. I don't know.
I don't
Maybe
know.
I've
It's
got
just it's
some
just
weird
kind of neat.
cause here.
Colons in
Yeah.
your. Oh no, that's for the mixin. Never mind.
That's neat though, and it does so. It like we're trying to explain to people, it really just does return one value. And why is it? Why are they spec together? Are they? Is it just because they I don't know feel kind of similar, or is there another reason beyond that?
I mean, they're sort of the same concept at different levels. Like they're both wrapping up a bit of logic and then spitting something out, and one is just doing it in the what we call the value space, like inside of a property, where you could put a value for that property.
Yeah.
One is dealing with that level, and the other is at the declaration level. But otherwise, they're basically the same concept. They both use parameters. They both sort of define a piece of logic.
Yeah. That's cool. I remember thinking of this is the thought I haven't been able to shake about them is okay, these one-liners are like a little bit neat. We'll probably see some of that. We'll probably see some people actually package these things up and put them on NPM in a way that we haven't seen CSS do that in a long time. You know, like I don't know. I haven't. When's the last time you pulled CSS from NPM? You know, like it's been a long time. It's just became uncool. You know, Sass had like fun add-ons for a while, and that era ended long ago. But I was sitting at this last CSS day, and Adam was doing the carousels thing. And to make like really robust, interesting CSS carousels, it was like so much CSS. It was a lot. But in a cool way, not in a way that it felt like too much, just felt like, well, there's these little dots and you got to do the dots at the bottom. And they have to be positioned and styled. And then there's the left and right arrow, and those are anchored, and those got to be there. But there's dark mode and light mode, and you have to have at supports to make sure it works, and it ends up just being a lot. But ultimately, it's all nested under one thing that's like dot carousel. It's all nested within that. So you could write like the world's hugest mixin that's just like called just dash dash carousel. And all of its arguments are, do I want the dots, the pagination ones? Yes or no, a Boolean attribute. Do I want the left and right arrows? Boolean attribute. What color should they be? Color attribute. It could be 10 things under one giant mixin that's to some popular NPM library. It just seems like that can and probably will happen.
Yeah.
We should get started on that. Oddbird can make a bunch of little packages. It's a good idea.
Money.
Flag functions. I guess these were functions. Yeah, I was just playing around with adding a bunch of logic to something.
And there's the style queries inside, or kind of. Those are if style queries. Those are
exactly using an if function, and it's sort of even figuring out how many arguments I've passed in to create those stripes. Because the other ones are their initial value, and so I can sort of create this gradient that does the right number of stripes for the number of colors that I pass in.
I could see that mattering, but it wouldn't if you used repeating linear gradient though. So you should up your game. Oh, wow! Look at that.
I think I ended up creating a bunch of different flags. Keyword. Right? There's like the progress arrow flag. Did I make that one maybe I didn't make that one a keyword. Yeah. Anyway, you can get quite complicated with it.
Right. And now that that's ready to go, and all it does is expose an API where you pass in a bunch of colors, however many you want ish, that you should never have to look at that again. It's like done. Put it in the done folder. Like I like CSS like that in a way that's not intended to be looked at every day. There's all these libraries in the world where you just don't know or care what it's doing behind the scenes. Oh, that's so cool.
Cool. Awesome.
So it's now just a dependency.
That. Yeah.
We'll include this demo link because I don't have it in the show notes and in the description for anyone who wants to follow along. This is great.
In the chat, I was saying number, and the correct thing might be integer. Anyway, that might be the problem we had earlier.
You can multiply a decimal by -1. It's cool. Number was right, I think.
Yeah, who knows?
In your explainer, you only had parentheses instead of angled brackets, unless it's changed since your explainer.
Okay. Yeah. Look at it.
I wanted to get into Chris's article that had some questions about what mixins will do if like two things happen. We spent a little time on it, but I wanted to go into each section of this article. We'll link the article. It's really good reading. And we'll have to have you back on to go over that maybe when mixins are a little bit more supported and we'll have all the answers.
It seems like they're coming along, right? I don't know how to watch that, but if they're already under one browser and there's a pretty good spec, it seems like it's just a time thing, right?
Yeah. Do we have any idea of timing, Miriam?
I don't have a good sense. It seems to me like functions are feeling pretty stable in terms of the spec. Like there hasn't been a lot of requests for changes coming in. Mixins are more actively being discussed. So as far as the spec is concerned, I think functions feel fairly stable, at least for a first round. Mixins still feel pretty not solid yet. There's going to be a lot of changes there to the spec before they roll out. But I haven't seen from Safari and Mozilla what their timeline is when they're gonna start shipping these things. They don't always announce, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything's a surprise to me these days. I keep it that way. It's fun.
And at the same time, I feel like we're getting so much CSS, so many features pretty quickly these days. So it's kind of great. We're not waiting around for a bunch of things. All right. So if you've made it this far and you're still with us, please visit oddbird.dev/wingingit to access links that we talked about. All the demos I'll include in the show notes and on the YouTube description. And let us know if you want any specific topics, if you want us to talk about or have any specific guests. We'd love to hear your ideas. Miriam, you've been working on a video course. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, it's called Poetic CSS. And the idea is that we're going to get into not just like, I don't know, not just how to center a div, but why does CSS have so many different ways of centering a div, and how would you choose one? Like how does CSS work? Why would you use grid over flexbox? What are the choices that you're making, and how do you think about them? So yeah, fun working on that. I'm excited to start rolling it out. Hopefully not too long. Where
can people get more information?
I think oddbird.dev/courses.
Oh, I don't know. We'll put that in the show notes as well. I should probably look that up.
There's it here. You can sign up for updates there, or watch us other places, and we'll post.
Yep, certainly. Chris, anything you'd like to promote?
Oh no, I'm good. Thanks though. It was a pleasure to be on and talk about this stuff. It's fun to getting a chance to learn as we're doing it. Do I actually understand this? Yeah, maybe I do. Maybe some rough edges though. So thanks again, and we'll see y'all soon, I'm sure.
Great. And if you, dear watcher and listener, want to support us, please like and subscribe. If you want to learn more from Oddbird, we invite you to check out our newsletter at oddbird.dev/oddnews. Thank you. And remember, best practice is a conversation. So let's keep talking.